Welcome to Armor of Truth Live, number 321. Check out this clip.
Win for Donald Trump, not just the substance of the opinion, but also the court had the option here to make the decision effective immediately or go through a traditional waiting period of 25 days. There's no expedited period. This effectively grants Donald Trump blanket immunity because it makes it seems to me now, impossible for a trial to go forward, either in the classified documents case, because this is also at stake there, and the January 6th case. And I think when you look at the dissenting opinion, Devin read part of it. This line stands out to me. It says the decision, quote, makes a mockery of the principle foundational to our Constitution and system of government that no man is above the law. Now, look, this decision doesn't say that what Trump did in his effort to overturn the election is covered by this immunity, but it would take time. It's going to take time that simply isn't there, and you have an election coming up, and you have
and that's the point. That's the whole point of what happened today for Donald Trump. That is this. It has also exposed the fact that all they wanted from the start was to persecute their political opponent. It's not important to them that he's as long as he's convicted at some point, as long as justice is served, even if it's 2 years down. No, now. We need it now, because there's an election. And they hate this man. We'll be getting into this, specifics of it, in just a moment. Here's another clip to check out. This is Atlanta last Thursday night during the debate.
This is not a peaceful protest, and we are not pacifists. We are not merely trying to make our voices heard or raising awareness. The days of protest are behind us, and to be peaceful in the belly of the beast that commits unlimited genocide on the global south is a disgrace. We refuse peace in a world where this monstrous Babylon still exists.
Monstrous Babylon.
It is time that we follow the lead of the militants of oppressed nations. It is time to change our orientation from one of protest to one of resistance. On June 12, 2020, Rayshard Brooks was lynched by the Atlanta Police Department in the parking lot of the Wendy's on University Avenue. Shame.
All right. And you'll notice, too, we've got... You'll see there's the old Soviet Union flag makes another appearance, giving this movement away completely. See it over there on the left. Workers and Students United, folks. This is what it looks like. There it is. There it is again. Mystery Science Theater 3000, for sure. Okay, also, guess which Geneva-based globalist organization is being accused of sexism, racism, and many other bad things? Well, it rhymes with Weff and Schwab. All this and more coming up next on Armor of Truth Live.
The hammer comes down and beats you over the head for the rest of your life with a big national security stick. And so that people learn to duck their head and not speak up. Because bad idea now.
This is the emergency broadcast system. This is not a test. Repeat, this is not a test.
Hey.
Citizens are advised to take the following steps.
Find us, armoroftruth.net.
In the age of technocracy, scientism, and pop atheism,
Faith is resistance.
Superman who would take humanity to new heights, to create a new world order.
Find us at the Armor of Truth YouTube channel.
This is not a test. Repeat, this is not a test.
Indeed, no, this is not a test. This is the real thing, my friends. This is the real thing. Make sure you check out our article, our most recent article at Substack. You can also get it very easily on the Armor of Truth mobile app if you download that. Now you'll also get live notifications whenever and wherever we go live. You'll also get access to exclusive content that we make available there. Okay, let's jump into this because, you know, things have been happening lately since we saw you last. Well, we were here with you during the debate the other night, and it wasn't pretty. But I don't know that anyone really expected what happened after that, right? They were all acting like, well, this is a brand. I can't believe it. What happened to Joe? He just fell flat on his face. He's been like that since he got there. You know, New York Times, they're out for blood. But here's the big story today. The U.S. Supreme Court has ruled on the immunity case against Donald Trump that has to do with that thing that happened in January of 2021 on the 6th day of the month that you just can't say here. You get banned and limited and all that. Well, on these charges that Trump plotted to overturn the results of the 2020 election, in a 6-3 ruling, the justices said that former presidents are shielded from prosecution for official acts, but do not have immunity for unofficial acts. So it comes down to that, basically. The lower courts had not determined whether these were official or unofficial acts, basically. The Supreme Court sent the case back. Like Dikembe Mutombo, they rejected it. They sent it back to the lower court to determine whether core aspects of the indictment are unofficial versus official, and therefore potentially shielded from prosecution. Now, the decision, what's the point here is, this is not gonna be any trial before the November election. This pretty much knocks that out. It ends the left's prospects, anyway, of putting Trump into another trial before November. The court's decision is second major Trump case that the Supreme Court has ruled on this term, and rejecting efforts to bar him from the ballot because of his actions following the 2020 election. Isn't it funny? We're going to talk to you tonight about reflexive alchemy a little bit too, and this is kind of an example of that, where one side is accusing the other of exactly what they did. That's the game, right? That's how it works. Now, the original indictment alleged that Trump demanded that the Justice Department investigate alleged voter fraud, right? And actively contemplated installing as acting Attorney General a loyalist who would pursue his baseless claims of election misconduct. Now, this is from Associated Press. That's not news. It's not news to say that Trump's claims were baseless. That's opinion. But the justices and those interactions clearly, the justices said that those interactions clearly and indisputably fall within the realm of a president's official duties, right? To find out whether or not the election was held fair, whether or not the laws of the land were held up. One especially notable piece of the majority opinion came from Chief Justice John Roberts, who has not been an ally of Trump very often, even though he is a conservative. He said the president, quote, the president may discuss potential investigations and prosecutions with his attorney general and other Justice Department officials to carry out his constitutional duty to take care that the laws be faithfully executed. That's a big deal. given that attorneys general, including the current one, Merrick Garland, pride themselves on their independence from the president. Roberts said, quote, in dividing official from unofficial conduct, courts may not inquire into the president's motives, nor may courts deem an action unofficial just because, let me read what, that was my word, merely because it allegedly violates a generally applicable law, unquote. The opinion found that Trump is absolutely immune, that's the language from the decision, from prosecution for alleged conduct involving discussions with the Justice Department with regard to the outcome or possible election malfeasance in 2020. Trump is also, quote, at least presumptively immune, unquote, from allegations that he tried to pressure Mike Pence to reject the certification of the vote. The majority, now this was the Supreme Court is a majority, it has a majority of conservatives. They did reject Trump's arguments that the indictment should just be completely dismissed and that impeachment is a necessary step in the enforcement of the law. So the Supreme Court's conservative majority accused the liberal justices who dissented of fear-mongering and striking a tone of chilling doom that's wholly disproportionate to what the court has actually done today. Chief Justice John Roberts said, without immunity, such types of prosecutions of ex-presidents could quickly become routine. So you see, that's really a major part of this too. Protecting future presidents from the kind of political attacks that Trump has weathered here so far. Roberts said the enfeebling of the presidency and our government that would result from such a cycle of factional strife is exactly what the framers intended to avoid. Clarence Thomas also said that the whole case violates, quote, our constitutional structure, unquote. And he said that because it's his opinion that special counsel Jack Smith's appointment was just completely illegitimate from the start. Special counsel Jack Smith's office declined to comment on the ruling today, and Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor shook her head and gritted her teeth as she read her dissent, saying, where she criticized the majority's conclusions as, quote, utterly indefensible, saying that it elevates the president to the level of a king who's above the law. Sotomayor said today's decision to grant former presidents criminal immunity, and it's not what the decision wasn't to grant former presidents criminal immunity. That's not what it was. But so that, that's false. That's fear-mongering. But who's playing politics, really? Anyway, she said it reshapes the institution of the presidency. It makes a mockery of the principle foundational to our Constitution, unquote. Progressive pundits and activists accuse the court of playing politics with the law. Isn't that special? Now who's playing politics? Saying that the court's delay in taking their time to take up the case sooner exposes political motivations. Right. It's only that side over there. They're the ones playing politics with the law, right? Not us. A lot of Trump critics spoke out today. It's been a big story. Saying things like, this is not how a democracy that works for all should function. It's a dangerous precedent. I fear for our democracy. Social media posts joked that Biden should go ahead and use this. He should go ahead and try it out, pack the courts, imprison Trump, postpone the election, since he's shielded by all of this apparent authority. Rick Wilson, co-founder of the anti-Trump organization, the Lincoln Project, posted on the X, quote, thank the Supreme Court for granting Joe Biden godlike official powers. He went on to say, I think the first step should be to declare all Trump golf courses protected federal wildlife preserves and seize them by eminent domain. It's an official act, so it's cool, right? Unquote. Nancy Pelosi got into the mix. She said the Supreme Court has gone rogue and violated the foundational American principle that no one is above the law. So that's going to be the talking point. No one's above the law. No one's above the law. Pelosi said this erodes the court's credibility in the eyes of all those who believe in the rule of law. Other critics say it's an open invitation to abuse of power. Well, the president, or the current resident of the White House anyway, made some statements about this. We'll listen to just a couple minutes of it. He did this just a couple hours ago, about 12 hours after the decision, I believe it was.
There are no kings in America.
No kings.
Each of us is equal before the law. No one is above the law.
Not even Hunter Biden? What about Joe? Is Joe above the law? I think Joe thinks he's above the law.
Not even the President of the United States. With today's Supreme Court decision on presidential immunity, that fundamentally changed. For all practical purposes, today's decision almost certainly means that there are virtually no limits on what a president can do. This is a fundamentally new principle, and it's a dangerous precedent, because the power of the office will no longer be constrained by the law, even including the Supreme Court of the United States. The only limits will be self-imposed by the president alone. This decision today has continued the court's attack in recent years on a wide range of long-established legal principles in our nation, from gutting voting rights and civil rights to taking away a woman's right to choose.
How did he work that into it? Taking away a woman's right to choose. So you get it, right? This is going to be the rhetoric here. It's going to be the talking point. It's going to be rule of law. No one's above the law. We're playing. This is silliness. By the way, I told you a minute ago, right? I left you hanging, didn't I? That there was a particular international organization in Geneva, one of the Geneva death cult, who's in a bit of trouble now. Who is it? Yeah, it's that guy. It's that guy. Let's go ahead and welcome Summer to the show.
Greetings, everybody.
There she is.
It's good to be here.
Summer looks nothing like Klaus Schwab.
Thank the Lord.
There you go. What's going on here? Well, it turns out that I've got here's some audio from Adam Clark, who was interviewed by Johnny Vedmore over on TNT earlier today. Let's listen to his take on things.
That. Well, folks, I saw a headline that said Davos executives accused of using the N-word around black workers. I mean, come on. You guys would be angry if I didn't bring this up, right? Yes, this is a fascinating story. Apparently, the leadership at the...
Summer, what N-word are they talking about? What, nuclear? Is it that N-word?
Yeah, the N-word, the nuclear word.
Narcissist? Is it that N-word?
I think it's narcissist.
The good old WEF, including the founder, one Klaus Schwab, have turned a blind eye to discrimination against women and black folks, as well as sexual harassment taking place in the organization. This is what the Wall Street Journal reported on Saturday, and they cited not just one, just two, three or four, no, over 80 current and former employees and other sources familiar with the situation.
Okay, what in the world is happening, Summer? What's going on?
I guess everybody gets a lawsuit now, a little bit of lawfare.
It's going to,
lawfare going around for all.
It's good for the goose is good for the gander, so they say. Well, it does look like that the backlash is on. We've been predicting it here for a while. You don't have to be a seer to understand that at some point, all of this that's been building up since 2020 for sure, there's going to be a backlash.
The snake eats itself eventually.
That's right. And we're in this, we see the backlash now, and it's not only that there's a conservative backlash. You see it happening in Europe, France, having their parliamentary elections over the last couple days, have seen a quote-unquote red wave.
Right, but we have to remember that power doesn't care how it acquires power. So they will change like a chameleon and just, go to the right side.
Yeah, this is an important point to make because we saw a video that maybe it was viral, maybe it wasn't, of a painter the other day, not an artist, but a guy who owns a painting business, and he was distraught sitting in his car, and he was weeping and crying and made, the video, I don't know, the people who showed us the video said it went viral, but we had our time.
They were the only people running it.
Yeah, but the point is made. It was a guy, and he was...
It was calling for solidarity in the working class. That was the verbiage.
Yeah, he says, I can't look at my daughters and my wife if I'm a failure. He's talking about he wants to be able to eat. He wants to be able to feed his family. In other words, he's feeling the pressure. The working man is feeling the pressure. The one who's being held down at the moment. It would be oppressed would be white working class. As we said, globalism is gay. And what do we mean by that? It's totalitarian ideology. It is anti-white, anti-straight, anti-American, anti-Christian. There's some other antis in there, but just basically. But not just that. It's not only folks from the right. And of course, as the backlash continues, you'll see it. You see it in France. You'll hear it from, after the November elections. Anyone who's not a Democrat or anyone who's not a liberal or progressive is going to be called far right. They're not just conservative. They're not just on the right. They're far right because you got to get them as close to Hitler as you can. But it's not just the far right. It's also the woke mob has turned against Joe Biden. Now, is this just all by design? Who knows? But this is what's happening. And let me show you another clip here. Is this... yeah, let's see. I want to jump ahead here to... Yeah.
1, 6, 7, 8. 1, 6, 7, 8. The U.S. is a terrorist state.
So what you heard earlier was they were announcing that they're moving from a protest footing to a violence footing. All right, anyway, that's what the person was saying there, but...
Frantz Fanon is apparently part of this movement, right, that has inspired them.
Yeah, it's
and that's what he calls for.
Yeah, decolonialization.
Right.
This whole idea. Meanwhile, all of their ideas involve colonialism of some kind. Colonialism of the facts. We'll talk about it in a minute. This is reflexive alchemy. We'll get to that in just a moment.
Exactly, pigs. Enemies of the people. Some opportunists call this ultra-leftism. We call it not being loyal to our oppressors.
By the way, I need to warn you about upcoming
language.
There will be some language here in just a moment. You can probably guess what it is, but just if you've got sensitive ears nearby, remove them, turn it down, check us out later, but we want to let you know.
Our oppressors demand that we choose the lesser of two evils. We say, behead the two-headed beast. We will take what's ours in the streets. They demand that we limit our protests to civil disobedience and banner drops. We say, we refuse your genocidal peace. We will take what's ours in the streets. They demand that we meekly submit as they turn every city into a cop city and turn every inch of this occupied land into a cop nation. We say, fuck the police. We will burn it down and we will take what's ours in the streets. And that isn't an empty threat, it's a promise. We will take our liberation. We will take our liberation. Free our prisoners, stop cop nation. Free our prisoners, stop cop nation. We will take our liberation. We will take our liberation. Free our prisoners, stop cop nation. Free our prisoners, stop cop nation. Intifada, intifada. Intifada, intifada. Long live the intifada. Long live the intifada. Intifada, intifada. Intifada, intifada. Globalize the intifada. Globalize the intifada. Thank you.
All right, globalize the intifada. We'll define intifada for you if you're not familiar with that term. Get to that in just a moment. Before we get there, though, We're not going to watch 60 Minutes. Let's remind you, I'm going to show you a clip of a Romanian dictator from the old Soviet Union in 1989, who it's a almost a perfect parallel to what we see in Joe Biden right now. And the masses rose up and pushed him out. Anyway, I'll show you that in a minute. It was bad. He didn't survive it. So to set the tone for that, check this out. Many of you have already seen this, but.
Joe, you did such a great job. You answered every question. You knew all the... And let me ask the crowd, what did Trump do? Lie! Yes. Joe, you did...
Yeah, that's about enough of that. Is that piercing?
Nails done a chalkboard.
Well, there's that. There's also another one. Goodness, did I miss it? Oh, here it is. Yeah, check this out, too.
Here in North Carolina and across America, who are working...
Summer, did you let these people get into North Carolina?
I wasn't able to stop them before they came in, I confess.
Working hard to find a secure place in the middle class. The moms who worry that their daughter... I saw in him then the same character that I see in him today. And even though he has faced unimaginable tragedies, his optimism is undaunted. His strength is unshakable. His hope is undeterred.
But apparently his ability to stand here and deliver at this podium, not so much.
Is null and void.
So she'll do it for him. Okay. So that was on Friday morning after the Thursday night debacle. And this was later on Friday. I believe this wasn't the protests in New York City.
Yeah.
Biden was in New York City for a fundraiser.
He was doing a fundraiser, that's right.
Yeah. And so heavy protests outside this Biden event.
We support your rockets too! We support your rockets too!
Okay, so some of the chants were Genocide Joe's got to go. And the facility here that they're invading, or being allowed to invade, however you want to look at it, is where Biden's holding his event. Now, these cops are not too worried because they know that the doors at the top of these steps are barricaded or something. Anyway, it goes on here. It was about 2 minutes and 17 seconds, Summer.
Yeah.
Yeah, pull it up here.
Right when it gets, there it is.
Yeah, they come back outside right here.
So this is Manhattan Center on 34th Street in New York City.
All right. Okay, now the point here is that this isn't an anti-Trump protest, or this is obviously it's a pro-Palestine, anti-Israel, but also an anti-Biden. Basically, it's an anti-America protest, but they're focused in on Joe Biden here. Now, I want to play a clip for you in just a moment of the former dictator in Romania, Nicolae Ceausescu. His last speech was given on December 21st, 1989. It was a public address he was given in the capital, in Bucharest. Ceausescu was the country's communist leader. And he was speaking to the people, and of course, it's the Soviet Union. This is right before the fall of the Soviet Union. The people were tired, right? They were mad. They were angry. And the communist leader tried to calm the crowd, to ease the unrest. In the middle of the speech, he just offered some wage increases. We decided this morning we would do this, other concessions. But the crowd, frustrated by years of oppression and economic hardship, began to boo and jeer. And as you'll see in just a minute, let's get it ready here. And as you'll see here, the broadcast captured Ceausescu's visible shock and confusion as the situation spiraled out of control and marked a significant turning point in the Soviet Union. Because the dictators in the Soviet Union, especially this one, before this, they were always untouchable. And just like that, he was helpless and powerless. And so I'll come back and give you a little more, but watch this. And imagine the American people and these groups, talking about the right and the left. Now, this would be the radical left. There are a lot of people, just like that, the painter we were talking about just a moment ago. A lot of people out there who are frustrated and tired, and they've had enough. And they can sense weakness in the leader now. What might happen, Well, I think the social engineering is a little better in the United States today than it was then. But watch this. See what you think.
Să adresez din inimă rugămintea de a lua cuvântul la această mare adunare populară a oamenilor muncii din capitală, a mult iubitului și stimatului conducător de partid și de țară, a eminentului revoluționar patriot, care de peste 6 decenii și-a dăruit întreaga activitate binelui, prosperității patrii, libertății, independenței depline a României socialiste.
And for some of our folks who might be listening on audio or can't see the video, they're just introducing the dictator, and a lot of glowing words here. He's the protector of freedom. Of course, this is a Soviet bloc. So anyway, so this is just an introduction.
Secretarul general al partidului, președintele Republicii, tovarășul Nicolae Ceaușescu.
So of course they have party loyalists in the front row and several rows back. Starts out okay.
Dragi tovarăși și prieteni, cetățeni ai capitalei României socialiste, doresc în primul rând să vă adresez dumneavoastră, participanților la această mare adunare populară, tuturor locuitorilor municipiului București, un salut călduros revoluționar, împreună cu cele mai bune urări de succes în toate domeniile de activitate.
Again, for those of you who can't see, the president, Romanian so-called president here, is weak. He's been weak. He's been seen weak in the press leading up to this. And at this moment, he appears weak to the crowd. They've had it. I'll fast forward here a little bit. Here we go.
Să adresez mulțumiri inițiatorilor și organizatorilor acestei mari manifestări populare din București, considerând aceasta.
Okay, this is where it starts to rise up against him.
Ca o
Now, his people are advising him to leave. They're advising him, we've got to get out of here. This is going to turn bad very quickly.
Allo! 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 Globalist! Așezați-vă liniștiți! Globalist! Globalist! Alo! Globalist! Așezați-vă liniștiți! Alo! Alo! Globalist! Așezați-vă liniștiți!
And then he comes back here and he tries to appease the people. I'll fast forward a bit. When the masses smell weakness, it's a bad sign. I've got another clip of Biden right after this from earlier this year where something like this almost happens.
Doresc să subliniez că toată puterea, forța și unitatea în apărarea
Right, calls for unity, independence, sovereignty, freedom. Let's all stick together. Yeah, so one of the fundamental problems of our nation are these dissidents out there, these people who cause trouble, right? These people who don't buy the party line. So they're making one last effort to reel it back in. Right. We made an important decision today. We just decided this morning to raise the wages of the working people. Just this morning we decided. Right there, going to increase the wages. The minimum wage. And there you've got the loyalists up in the front. You're gonna, it's kind of like one of these prosperity gospel churches where you have all your plants in the front row. No matter what you say, they are always happy. Telling you, go on, brother, preach. All right, this might go on a little too long, so let me just tell you how this worked out for Ceausescu. This event, there's another clip after this. This ignited a larger revolt. And this was December 21st, right? This led to Ceausescu and his wife having to flee Bucharest altogether. But they were captured and tried, and 4 days later, just 4 days later, on Christmas Day, 1989, they were executed. 4 days after this. And then the collapse of the communist rule in Romania followed. And then the collapse of the Soviet Union was soon to follow as well. Now, I just thought it was interesting here as Ceausescu is making these. Look at the gestures here. You can see his advisors are pretty sure, all right, it's time to go, Prez. It's time to get out of here. All right, here's Biden back in March of this year.
But I don't want to get carried away here. Before I begin, I want to say thank you.
Whoa.
Wait. Look, thank you. Look, I don't resent his passion. There's a lot of Palestinians who are being unfairly victimized. But folks, look. Before I begin, I want to say thank you to all those outstanding Black, Latinos, AAPI organizations supporting Kamala and me. In 2020 and 2022, especially here in Georgia.
So, again, no, not a whole lot there, but again, it's happening quite a bit out there where there's pushback, and we've just seen since in the past 3 months where the radical left is turning against Joe too. What does it mean? I don't know. We'll see what happens with it. But it didn't turn out well for Ceausescu and his wife. We have a similar situation here in America with Joe Biden and his party. Yeah, there we go. But it's, this is a severe situation, right? It's what makes it so severe is the actions of the radical Marxists to whom Biden has pandered to for years have turned on him. They also smell weakness. They smell blood in the water. And they're growing more restless every day. And you've also got people on the right who, the working people who are tired. And they understand that their nation is being pulled away from them. It's beyond speculation that, like Ceausescu's situation in Romania, Biden's control of the levers of power and his presidency have suddenly and dramatically ended. What you see out of Joe Biden from here on out is going to be, however long it lasts, is going to be hollow. It's going to be all for show. There's nothing left. He has no power now. All that's left is the uncomfortable spectacle of however he's going to be removed. Now, the family, the Biden crime family. From Politico, the report was that members of Joe Biden's family privately trashed his top campaign advisors after the debate when they were hanging out at Camp David over the weekend, chilling out. They blamed Biden's staffers, right? So there's internal discord also. They blamed them for the president's flop in the debate. And his family is urging him to fire or demote his closest and highest ranking staffers. And so the Biden crime family blamed the president's staff, including senior advisor Anita Dunn, Biden's attorney, Bob Bauer, who's Dunn's husband, and Bauer, who's the one also who played Trump in the debate preparations. He, played the part of Trump as they were rehearsing. And Ron Klain, that's Klain, very important person here, who's just like this with Barack Obama, the real power behind the movement. Ron Klain is formerly Biden's former chief of staff, and he was also responsible for preparing Biden to debate Trump live on television. The Biden family bemoaned the fact that Klain had not prepared the feeble 81-year-old to, quote, pivot more, to go on the attack. And they complained that the president was too bogged down in defending his record rather than outlining a vision for his second term. The Biden family railed on the staffer, saying that scrappy Scranton swamp thing Joe Biden was overworked and not well rested. Wow, he's been overworked and not well rested for 3.5 years now. According to Politico, the sources that released this info said the Biden family wanted the president to continue in the campaign rather than end his career with a calamitous debate performance against Donald Trump, whom they all loathe. The family also grilled staffers about why they overburdened Scrappy Joe with statistics and why they had Joe in makeup during the debate that made him look pale when he came to Atlanta with a nice, even summer tan, they say. Well, the Biden family's desire to stay in the race might not matter very much for very long. According to the sources, the campaign is going to have to convince the donors to keep Biden in the race. You can't run without the dough. And here is the sign. Here's one of the signals that probably isn't gonna last. Here is a tweet from John Morgan. John Morgan is one of the major donors to the Democratic Party, a major donor to the Biden campaign, publicly blamed the president's team, saying Biden has for too long been fooled by the value of Anita Dunn and her husband, Bauer. He said they need to go. Today, the grifting is gross. It was political malpractice. Interesting, isn't it? These things are going down this way. We'll get to AOC in just a moment. Anything you want to add in there while we're transitioning to this new segment here? Anything you got for us?
No, you're handling it quite well. Thank you.
Shout me out if you've got something to add in there. This is actually a show that we just put together for you today. So the consequences, for example, there's a massive fear, it seems, of Donald Trump, or they want people to be afraid of Donald Trump. The consequences of the shift to this, we shared this with you the other day, Aaron Wren, this book, Life in the Negative World, Confronting Challenges in the Anti-Christian Culture, making the case that earlier in the 20th century in America, the nation was positive toward Christians. And then there was a period where it was just neutral to the church. But that now, and since about, at least for the last decade, it's switched to negative. It's an anti-Christian world. So when he says the negative world, that's what he means. This is where we are now. The church holds very little sway when it comes to discourse in the public square now. So the consequences of this shift to the negative world have not made the world a better place. It has not established the utopia that the culture jammers had promised. Wren writes, the decline, quote, the decline of the status of Christianity and its moral systems, cheered on by those who wish to promote, for example, greater sexual freedoms, have removed all of the barriers and the social bulwarks against the emergence of leaders with characters like Donald Trump. Having rejected the moral frameworks that previously governed society, those who today say they're horrified by Trump's behaviors, they don't have any valid objective standard by which to critique him, because they're the ones who insisted and created this situation now where there is no truth. They're the ones who, let me read this. I wrote this the other day, and Summer and I we were in a coffee shop the other day. I was reading this one. And Summer, what was the book you were reading the other day? It was Per Faxnell's book.
Satanic Feminism.
Yeah, this is going to be a good one. We've covered that here with you before, Per Faxnell's work. Someone got the book. And
it is dense.
It's a dense, thick academic work, but it charts the origin of feminism all the way back to the Middle Ages, and how the movement came through, and how it was always,
to the fall.
Yeah, right. Well, like we can follow it all the way back to the fall, right? Mm-hmm. And that this idea of feminism has been, it's how does he say it? It's the idea that Lucifer is the liberator of women.
Right. Exactly.
Liberated from what? Exactly.
The patriarchy.
The patriarchy.
But then it's the patriarchy that wants to make women obsolete.
Yeah.
So
right. The transgender movement, the T and the LGBT is the patriarchy. Transgender movement is run by billionaire white men mostly.
Right, because they want to take over reproduction in women.
Exactly.
And have also women's parts.
That's what they want.
Boobs.
It's gross. It's crazy. We'll show you some clips of this nastiness in a moment. Well, probably won't show you any nastiness. But there's some interesting things happening over the last week or so with the pride marches. It's out of control. It can't last much longer. But anyway, the Trump derangement, right? This fear of Trump. The Trump phenomenon is a result of the decline of Christian moral norms. Because again, you might think that as we present this to you tonight that we're here advocating for Donald Trump. We're not doing that at all. We don't tell you who to vote for. We're reporting this to you as it is. And you can make up your own mind. But the truth is, Trump is known for infidelity. He's known for boastfulness. He's known for greed. And all of this is accepted by the religious right, and they promote him in a way as though he's an idol. But those on the left who cheer the decline in morality have been given a leader who exemplifies this polished up immorality. In short, the rejection of eternal standards and categories that once governed society is exactly what opened the door to the Trump phenomenon. And it's just like the Israelites when they were living under the judges, and they told God, give us a king. We want to have a king. And they got a king, and they got Saul, and he was not a good king. Just like Santino was a bad Don. Saul was a bad king. So anyway, the point being here, all of this breathless anxiety and these speeches, these people have the leader that they deserve. All right. Now, again, earlier we heard the protesters crying, Intifada, globalize the Intifada, Intifada forever. Intifada is an Arabic term that translates to uprising. Specifically, it refers to significant periods of intensified Palestinian uprisings against the Israelis. The first Intifada uprising was December 1987, ended in January 1993 with the signing of the Oslo Accords. And this one, the one that started in 1987, was widespread Palestinian protests, civil disobedience, strikes, and boycotts. It really wasn't warlike. But there were some violent confrontations with Israeli forces. But it was mostly grassroots, involving mass participation and spontaneous actions by Palestinian civilians, right? This was mostly civilians. But the second Intifada was a little different. This one was known as the Al-Aqsa Intifada. That's the name of the mosque that's in Jerusalem, over the Dome of the Rock. This was in September 2000, lasted through 2005. This uprising was different. Saw intense violence, suicide bombings, military incursions, significant loss of life on both sides, and it resulted in nothing good only heightened tensions between the two. Various factions like Fatah, Hamas, the Islamic Jihad were the ones now organizing. They were the primary leaders of the intifadas, of the second one specifically. But activists and agent provocateurs have also appropriated the term intifada, as you can see, to spur on groups to rise against perceived oppression or occupation. We see it in the United States right now. For example, let's listen to, now she's probably not going to call for intifada, but she is in support of those who do. And what's interesting is that when, right after October 7th, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was one of those, who in unison immediately condemned Palestinians or Hamas for the attacks. And now they're seeing the opportunity, that there's a movement and it's turned against Biden. What's interesting, as you'll see here in a minute, they've also turned against AOC. Apologize for the screechy voice, folks. Nothing I can do about it.
We do have his back, don't we? He is under absolute attack, not just from these big lobbies and not just from big money, but from the underlying forces that have been trying to decimate our community for decades. For decades. He is being primaried by racism. He is being, as Black and Puerto Rican and immigrant families moved in here to start a life, Robert Moses constructed the Cross Bronx Expressway. And it was designed as a gash to decimate and disconnect this community from itself, our community from ourselves.
All right, so this is some locals. Now here's Bernie. Big Bernie made an appearance.
Oligarchs will control the United States government, and our view is, no, they won't. Yeah, Jamal and Miss Latimer have differences of opinion. Jamal believes that health care is a human right. And Jamal...
There's a sign, Summer. Can you see that one there? Resist colonialism. Mm-hmm. From the Bronx to probably from the river to the sea. Resist until return. Let's see. The Bronx loves Palestine. So the people have absorbed this movement. They have. I don't want to speak for everybody, but most of these people really don't have any idea. Here's a sign I think you noticed too, Summer. Zionism is a mental disorder. Yeah. And that guy's handing them out. And you can see everyone wearing the, what are the head coverings called, Summer? They're called the kafiyas?
It's actually just fled my mind at the moment.
Yeah, we'll get it.
Kafaya.
Yeah, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But they've all taken it up, and it's part of it's part of the movement, right? Just like the mask in 2020.
We are not fans of Zionism, by the way.
Yeah, no, we're not.
To be clear.
No, we understand clearly what Zionism is, and we've got videos here on the channel. You know what, Summer, if you remember what it's back in November and December of last year after the invasion, we did probably 4 at least shows on that.
Yeah,
and
we went pretty deep on that.
We talked about foreign policy, but we specifically covered it from the biblical perspective.
Christian Zionism.
Yeah. Now listen, we're going to show you now. Listen for the rhetoric, and we're going to come back. We're going to talk to you about reflexive alchemy. So listen to the language here. Listen to what the man is saying and how he's saying it, and pay attention to some of the key words. You might recognize.
Why I got a foul mouth? What am I supposed to do? You coming after me. You coming after my family. You coming after my children. I'm not supposed to fight back. I'm not supposed to fight back. We're gonna show them who the fuck we are.
So it's like one part of the reflexive alchemy is catharsis, right? It's really getting in there and making people believe that you understand their suffering, and you're going to end it. If we can just unite together, we'll end all this suffering. So they're campaigning for Jamal Bowman. Now let's move on ahead here. Here's AOC's bus. Now this is where AOC's bus gets defaced as pro-Palestinian protesters rush it after this same Bronx rally. Not a lot here, right? But the idea is she's not loved and adored in her own precinct, in her own area like she was a couple years ago. Again, the chance. There you go. There's a site for you. Okay. Oh yeah, we'll get to these in just a moment. The pride parade's out of control.
Yeah, it looks like in Toronto it was shut down because of the protests. The Gaza protests shut down the Pride Parade in Toronto.
That's right. I've got a clip of that coming up, but I wanted to play this for you too. As we show you some of these clips, we're going to be telling you a little bit about reflexive alchemy and how it works, and why it's important that you understand what it is. But listen to Anthony Sutton. If you don't have an Anthony Sutton book, go to Amazon or wherever you buy books, wherever you prefer to buy books, and look for Anthony Sutton. Any one of his books would be a good place to start. But here he describes the Hegelian dialectic.
You'll find that men in the same society will take opposite positions in public. So you've got William Buckley, whom I call a House Conservatism member, but so is a man, for example, called Edwin Burt, who has a string of communist affiliations, which is about that long. And we'll get into this later. The method they use is that of the Hegelian dialectic. Thesis played against antithesis leads to a synthesis. In other words, for Hegel, for history to make progress, you have to have conflict. And when you look at the key people in the order, you will find that they generate conflict. So Bush and Harriman politically are conflicting. Coffin and Buckley, although part of the same order, are in public conflicting with one another because conflict leads to the new synthesis.
There you go. So they, in public, are enemies, appearing to contradict one another, but privately they're working for the same outcome. Now, this is not just a social and political movement. This movement that what we've shown you so far has been mostly the anti-Israel, the pro-Palestinian movement, and now it's Pride Month. Well, it was. It's not now. It was yesterday. Yesterday was the last day, and so you see that in both of these movements, they share similar elements. There's the same message there, but they're clashing now too. And that's because within the Hegelian dialectic, within this dialectical process, everything contradicts. I'll explain that a little more in just a moment. But it's not just political and social, it's religious. It's unmistakably faith-based. And so what we're watching here are the worshipful actions of the faithful woke, the faithful Marxists. Right? James Lindsay says that Marxism is undoubtedly a theology. right? And so the real battle is, we also often point out how within the global movement, the United Nations, there's this theosophical element and movement. And they seem to share Marxist ideas. So it seems like that they adopted Marxism, but it's, as Lindsay says, it's not even really that way. Marx was one of those. Marx is or was a Gnostic. He was essentially a theosophist. So the rhetoric and the process of pushing forward a contradictory worldview like this, mostly, like what you heard from AOC earlier, it's sophistry, right? This is arguing for the sake of arguing, just to fire people up, just to get them lathered up. As James Lindsay says, the dialectic, specifically the process of dialectical materialism, is the operating system of the left. In other words, this is how they're trained to think. He said, too, the other day, I was listening, in our schools, it's not necessarily that they're indoctrinating them, although that is happening. It's not as though they have removed critical thinking from the process. It's that they've changed it. It's a new kind of critical thinking. They're teaching them to think in terms of the dialectic. So the movement is trying to manifest their idealism in the material world. They're trying to manifest their reality. They're trying to build heaven on earth, their utopia. Necessarily, though, this system worships power. Necessarily, this system worships the state. In this sense, it sees mankind as a kind of New Age God, manifesting the reality he desires through linguistic alchemy, social engineering, etc., etc. Lindsay says, or asks, is there some common underlying thread between Marxism, neo-Marxism, or critical theory and wokeness? And the answer is clearly yes. And by tracing back to one of the most influential speculative idealist philosophers of the early 19th century, Georg Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel, we can, by understanding his philosophy of the dialectic, we can gain a great deal of insight into how these leftist movements, the Marxist old left, the neo-Marxist new left, and the intersectional woke left of the moment, then we can see how they share at least one deeper philosophical architecture in common. From Hegel, the left, since Hegel's time, has wittingly or not wittingly, either way, have adopted several of the pillars of the Hegelian philosophy. That would be statism. Hegel was a statist. Hegelian historicism, and much more. Importantly, they've adopted his dialectical approach and metaphysical worldview. We're going to share this some. I think we need to drop in that New Discourses episode. I guess it's 37. You know which one is that 3-hour one.
Sure, we can drop it under the video.
Yeah, that'd be good to put it in we'll put that in the description under the video. It's excellent. It really gives you a foundation for understanding what you see happening around you now. And by understanding it, it helps us to respond to it in a way that's effective. It's a deep dive into the ways that Hegel's philosophy is at the root of the entire dialectical left, since naming the dialectic the operating system of all activist leftism since the early 1800s. Lindsay explains Hegel's view of dialectical thought, and then he reveals, in many examples, reaching up to the present day, how consistently the dialectic appears as the functional underpinning of leftism for the last 200 years. He makes the case that leftism, since Hegel, thinks dialectically, moves dialectically, and applies dialectical thought not just to its targets, but to everything, including itself, including even its own dialectic. That's because the dialectic is central to Hegel's hermetic or alchemical worldview, and it explains his mystical metaphysics so that this long arc of leftist activism can be understood as evolving denominations within a single religious faith. Now, this is all theoretical, but Lindsay, and what we try to help you with here too, explains how Hegel's historicism and his statism arise as key features of his philosophy, with both of these characterizing activist leftism up to the present day. Hegel is a key progenitor of communism, liberationism, the idea of liberation theology as well, and ultimately wokeness. And so this philosophy, if we can understand it, and it's not difficult, we'll share some points about it with you in just a minute. I'll give you some examples. If we understand it, then it can be countered. Then we can know how to counter it. Right? Shouting them down is not the point. Right, Summer, what is the statement?
The issue is always the revolution. So anything, the reaction is the real action.
Yeah. You're intended to be upset by this. And when you're upset by it, they're winning. That's the goal, because that forwards the dialectic. As a religion in its own right, with its own notion of deity, metaphysical commitments, soteriology, and eschatology, the new woke movement has an origin story, and we need to understand it. And when we do understand it, that's how we're able to break it down. We're able to understand it and refute it to more people. Now, a part of this movement is this.
Okay, that sounds great.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I just think that's interesting right there. Just you know, the colors.
Satan.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, they're taking for the people who seem to loathe Hitler so much, they sure look a lot like his movement. Now, one of the ideas here that you're going to see repeated is, what is it, Summer? There's no pride with apartheid.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a bit of a... Remember, in the dialectic, they even contradict one another. That's how it works. I'll have to get to these points here in just a minute so this makes sense.
That is what we're doing. We are standing up and pushing up against this system. It's racist.
One of the main points in this reflexive alchemy is identifying the groups that you're going to hold up, that you're going to pit against one another. And the more ways that you can identify people as being unique, or in this case, being victims or oppressed, then the more opportunities you have to push forward the dialectic, to move, to cause social change. And of course, that's what intersectionality is, right? How many different ways can I label myself a victim? How many different ways can I say that I'm being oppressed in this society? All right, and that's the LGBTQ IA2S plus movement. And that acronym, or that alphabet soup continues to grow as they add more and more different groups.
Political fronts.
What's that?
Political fronts.
Right.
Yeah.
Agents of change. Oh yeah, here we go. This big fella here knows the language. He's got the rhetoric down. I wouldn't doubt that this person has been trained. Listen.
These symbols of solidarity are inclusive for all. Doesn't mean we get to fight and select when we fight for whom. That is another tactic of the oppressor. We are tired of being oppressed. We are tired of our education, our own truth about our own people being washed, pink washed. We know that our ancestors would have stood right here in the sun with
Okay, so part of the dialectic is presenting these paradigms, false paradigms, right? Care, not cops. False paradigm. The assumption is that you can't have both. You got to have one or the other.
There is no reason why we should not be able to access the library. To invest in militarization! To invest in a cop city!
So they're saying shame to her in response to her. So this is like in church with responsive reading.
He's cut the budget 7 times. 7 times! Mayor Adams has been in office in 3 years. He's cut the budget on average 2 times every year. Every year. Billions of dollars that's our money. That's our money.
And we will shut it down. Because let's be real, these queer cops at Pride, when a young trans sibling is being attacked, these cops, baby, I've seen it, they look the other way. They look the other way. They blame us for being proudly and unapologetically who we are. That is so shameful. The gaslighting is unbearable.
There you go. They blame us for being unapologetically who we are. That's religion. That's a religious movement right there. Who are they? Who are they? Well, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, two-spirit, intersex, asexual, whatever you can come up with. And this is why it's out of control. This is why it's not going to last. It can't. I mean, there was, who was it, Lionel? I listened to Lionel Nation last night, summer, and he was saying he was someone who used to support, gay rights. Again,
Right.
There's another false idea. There's no such thing as gay rights or social justice. There are rights and there's justice. When they start importing these qualifiers, that's a movement. That's a stage of this reflexive alchemical process. That's
right, but he was saying like now they're coming after your children.
Yeah,
so that's
that's
completely over the line.
Yeah, and it seems like that it's one of two things has happened. Either this movement has been completely co-opted by another part of the dialectic, or this is just depravity run amok. I mean, it had to end this way. From the Christian worldview, it had to end this way. It had to end up with grown men walking naked. And now this is going to be graphic once again. I don't. They
do have it blurred out to a large extent. So
how do I explain, what was going on in San Francisco without being too graphic? Fully erect. How about that?
There you go.
Let's just get it out there.
That's how to say it.
At a children's event, that's the
kids
video.
were there.
At
not a children's event, but
at an all ages event. Do we have that video? Remember that lady, that mother? That was on.
Yes, it's there.
That was on the show we were watching.
It's in there.
All right, cool.
Save it. Yeah, just scroll down. It's probably a third.
Let's start. Oh boy, let's start with these folks here.
Yeah, so this is funny because this is a situation where the Palestine people were protesting and the gay parade was going on, and then you have naked people walking through the demonstration.
Yeah,
so.
and they ran into conflict. You get to see the dialectic playing out in real time right in front of you. I mean, look at this. What in the...
In exploiting Native people. Our first demand is an easy one.
Total madness.
Pride Toronto must declare itself an apartheid-free zone.
No pride without apartheid, or no pride with...
They did end up canceling it, apparently. The Pride Parade in Toronto.
Oh yeah, this is Toronto.
Show what was going on in New York.
Okay. Yeah, here's the terrorist sympathizers they got blocking the queer parade in Toronto. So that's a photo. Yeah, here's the video. We've already shown you most of that one.
This is Biden.
Yeah,
he's doing a squat at the Waffle House.
Yeah. Interesting day there. Yeah, this is a month ago. I saw this. Joe Biden was on The View, and she was talking about how Joe Biden is, he's better because of his age.
He's tip top.
That's already been negotiated, and I think the American people deserve a debate because you need to see your choices. You need to see Trump, and you need to see the president, and you need to see the differences. And my husband's, and you're going to see how smart he is and the experience he has. And then you'll see somebody who, like you're saying, I'm going to use Joy's words, can't put a sentence together, and everything is beautiful.
What? I didn't hear that before. They're saying that Donald Trump can't put a sentence together?
It's amazing.
That's some reflexive alchemy at work. Right? Oh, here we go. This is the definition of
classic.
I can imagine what can be and be unburdened by what has been. You know? What can be unburdened by what has been.
What can be unburdened by what has been. What can be unburdened by what has been. What can be unburdened by what has been.
What we can see, what we believe can be unburdened by what has been. What can be unburdened by what has been.
What can be unburdened by what has been.
What can be unburdened by what has been. What can be.
Okay, it does go on for 4 minutes.
Unburdened by what has
Isn't that
been.
crazy?
Who we can be.
Yeah, I mean,
unburdened by who we have been.
So the point is, folks, these people have been groomed and trained in all this. Here's the clip of Biden being helped down when he had to be helped off the stage after the debate. Goodness. Seems like maybe his eyesight's going bad on him. Okay, here we go. Now we're getting back to New York City here.
Yeah, this is New York Pride.
So this was this Saturday or Sunday?
I think it was Saturday.
June 30th, yeah. Which was Sunday. So this is a conflict at the Pride Party.
Amazing.
We're not even sure what the brawl was, but what you see is the movement breaking down. Can't sustain itself.
Well, to be fair, though, also there were some people saying that there were paid people to come in and agitate.
Well, the whole thing is agitation propaganda. It's agitation from the start.
Yeah,
right?
this is culture jamming. This is disruption.
That's it.
Burn it down, That's France.
Yeah, this is
Pride.
from October 2023. Again, it's the same, but it's another example of
craziness going on.
Yeah. More from New York. Most of this was on Sunday. Yeah, it was madness. It was madness in the Big Apple. And there was this piece too in Tampa Bay, at Busch Gardens in Tampa Bay. Something called the Busch Gardens Takeover. Look at this. Madness. Theme park taken over. It's called the Busch Gardens Takeover. It was mostly teenagers, I think, but you know. But there was a gun. There was a gun that got in somehow. All right. And here are the Boy Scouts in the Seattle Pride Parade.
Seattle Center. Here with us today are some of the amazing leaders who start our two exceptional women who are champions in their respective.
Okay. What's this one, son?
That's the woman that you wanted. That's the clip.
Oh, that's right. Okay, yeah, folks, listen. This is the culture jamming for sure here.
Okay, I feel physically ill after spending the day at San Francisco Pride. Now, I've been to quite a few Pride events, but this one was by far the most disturbing, and it was because there were nudists there that were fully erect in front of children, standing in a way to make sure that everybody saw their fully exposed penises. There were adults grabbing other people's genitals, and other adults masturbating. There was a fetish zone in which people were peeing on each other. So again, too, I'm shocked and horrified after experiencing this. Keep in mind that this is an all-ages event. There were children present. The fetish zone was an 18-plus area, but there were no IDs being checked. And again, there were adults essentially having sex in public. I am shocked. I've never experienced such a vulgar display of promiscuity. I mean, I don't even know what to say in terms of this. I'm shocked and horrified, and I don't think I'm ever going to cover Pride ever again after what I witnessed today. It was the worst of the worst.
Yeah. You shouldn't be surprised. So you get a lot of oppressor-oppressed rhetoric, right? That comes out of the Pride movement. It comes out of all of these movements. Is there some more in this one? Oh, there we go.
Are.
Wow, here's some libs of TikTok. Here's more. Goodness gracious. What in the world?
Endless.
I mean, so this is what the Pride Month has really turned into. It's just grown men exposing themselves to the world because they like to do that. Right, this is the logical conclusion of all of this. There can be no other. Again, okay,
this is
here
like
you go.
A demon.
Yeah, with the kids.
With the kids.
Let's make this one.
A weird, like...
Yeah, so you got a 7-foot demon. What is this kid wearing? Oh, there's one kid after another?
Go to the next one.
Okay.
The next one is a sheriff's commercial.
This one?
No, it should be right underneath it.
Oh, the sheriff. I know what you're talking about. There's this one too.
We don't need to see that one.
Right. I mean, but this is it. I mean, you have to. This has to be dealt with. Insanity. All right. Yeah. This is the.
It's like a police commercial, like a sheriff's department commercial.
San Francisco Sheriff's Department. In conjunction with the San Francisco Police Department. There you go.
amazing.
Jacksonville, Florida, was conquered by the woke activists, flying a foreign flag. You know, everybody, oh, it's no big deal. Look, it's just having fun, right? No, it's not really. They know what they're doing. Everyone else thinks, oh, it's no big deal. They're going to put that flag up there for a little while. Let them do it. Let them have fun. No. They know what they're doing. All right, that brings us to the end of that. This was just more of the same. This is the guy in Canada. He's showing us more of that, and this is also. Now, we've seen this pushback, right? This backlash is what we titled this show, Backlash, and other mass rituals in the United States. So Marine Le Pen in France. Let's see. Let's get this where we can see it. So you're going to be seeing this backlash occur. And the thing that we have to be careful with, so this, I told you earlier, this is in France where the what they're calling the far right, when they're just conservatives, have, let's see how much they've won here. Won 33% of the vote with the left-wing alliance behind on 28%. And the Macron camp behind 20%. So Macron was trounced. He and his party were trounced. He's still in power, of course. They haven't selected a new leader yet. And it was the highest turnout for a parliamentary first round since 1997. So there's a backlash happening in Europe. The pride stuff is out of control in the United States. Let's see. So if we think about when this actually got started, Wren here talks about this a bit in his book. I'm sorry, let me get that up there for you. Aaron Wren, Life in the Negative World. I wanted to share with you just a bit here. Pages 10 and 12, or 10 through 12. As we think back through history, the collapse of the Soviet Empire and the end of the Cold War was one of these transition points that we can point back to. That was the start of the neutral world could plausibly be dated back to 1989, where we showed you earlier, where the dictator was executed. But Wren says it's probably started in 1994. This was the high watermark of early 90s populism, arguably the peak of the evangelical influence within the United States. The negative period, something significant changed in American society during Barack Obama's presidency, during his second term. One of the best examples of this shift is the so-called Great Awakening. That's a term progressive technocrat Matthew Iglesias established in an article for Vox in 2019. And the change, he said, started in 2014, but which may have been triggered by the death of Trayvon Martin in 2012. So what we can see here is you look at the frequency of these words. You can go on Google and you can do this kind of search. David Rosado and his co-authors noted, quote, our results show that the frequency of words that denote specific prejudice types related to ethnicity, gender, sexual, and religious orientation has markedly increased within the 2010 to 2019 decade across most news media outlets. The phenomenon starts prior to, but appears to accelerate after 2015. Isn't that interesting? Because that's where Donald Trump shows up. The authors point out that this started prior to Trump's election run in 2016 cycle, so it can't really be pinned entirely on his influence. Zach Goldberg at the Manhattan Institute found that the frequency of terms such as social justice, systemic racism, and white privilege being used skyrocketed from relatively low levels starting after 2012. His graphs of this became a viral sensation on the internet. Clearly, something fundamentally changed in the discourse on race around 2014. And that's had a major influence on the key institutions of society. Additionally, a major change in views toward homosexuality began in the same period. The Supreme Court's Obergefell decision that legalized same-sex marriage across all states was handed down in 2015. This inaugurated a new legal regime in America around gender and sexuality issues. Then in 2008, a majority of voters in California, it was California, banned same-sex marriage. That's 2008. Also in 2008, Barack Obama was campaigning for president as an opponent of same-sex marriage. Hillary Clinton also publicly opposed same-sex marriage at that time. Yet by 2016, Donald Trump personally holding up pride flags at rallies while running for president as a Republican. Look at that shift from 2008, where you've got Obama and Clinton both speaking out publicly against gay marriage. By 2016, Donald Trump is the one who is in office as president who supported gay marriage more than any Democrat before him. Isn't that interesting, Summer? Isn't that interesting that no matter what, we saw that in a clip from it
just shows how it shows that people are in these echo chambers and
show? What was that show last night? I'd kind of like to grab that clip right quick. The two guys, the gay guys that were conservatives.
Oh, let me look in the history.
Yeah, and they had that clip where he was interviewing that gay guy at one of the pride marches and telling him he was going to vote for Trump, and the guy was, but Trump has oppressed us. He doesn't even realize that the Democrats have been against gay marriage all the way. Trump was the first, and he still supports gay marriage. There's no question. We'll show you that clip in just a second. But other indications of a major cultural shift in the early to mid-2010s are also evident. The mere fact that someone like Donald Trump could get elected president in 2016 was a shocking development. Social psychologist Jonathan Haidt noted that he started seeing a change in student attitudes on campus around 2013. In the Christian world, evangelical pastor Rick Warren prayed at Obama's 2009 inauguration. But by 2013, Louis Giglio was forced to withdraw from praying at Obama's second inauguration because of a controversy over his views on homosexuality. Isn't that interesting, though? You've got Obama and Clinton in 2008, and then in 2016, Trump, the one who they hate. Okay, so it's breaking Biden. We'll get this one up here for you. I think you'll enjoy this interaction.
Disaffected.
Okay.
Disaffected Podcast is the channel, and it's called Breaking Biden.
Is it in the history?
Mm-hmm.
There it is. I've got it. Disaffected Podcast. These guys were funny. We watched their show last night. Here it is.
The only terrorist who's done anything crossing the border is one who came along and killed three, under his administration, killed an Al-Qaeda person come in his administration, killed three American soldiers. That's the only terrorist that's there. I'm not saying that no terrorists ever got through, but the idea they're emptying their prisons, we're welcoming these people, that's simply not true. There's no data to support what he said.
There's a little bit from the president the other night. Okay, let's see if I can scrub here and find that. It'll be worth your time. Yep, there it is. All right, that wasn't so bad. Here we go.
I want to roll that first clip, please.
So, election coming up. Have you thought about who you're voting for?
Yeah, I voted for Biden.
Why?
Because he is the less of all evils.
He voted for the Defensive Marriage Act, though, to ban you from getting married.
Oh, so you're voting for Trump?
He's the first president to enter office supporting gay marriage. So
what is that? This person doesn't understand or care what the policy or what the truth is. He can't take it in. Again, Obama and Clinton publicly against gay marriage. Donald Trump was the first to support it.
So you just said that's something.
By the
yes,
way,
I am.
We're not saying that's a good thing.
Why?
Gross.
Why?
Disgusting.
You just said gay marriage is your most important thing.
Thank you. What the is wrong with you?
Why?
You are a disgusting person.
That's not nice. Why? Why am I disgusting?
I'm done with this interview.
I think that
you've
been brainwashed.
Well, how have I been brainwashed? So I couldn't come up with.
You're voting for Trump and you're a gay man.
His ideologies create hate. No, I'm not leaving.
What has Trump done against gay people?
He has completely up our rights.
Which rights?
Immediately when he went into the White House.
Which rights?
Which rights?
Oh, don't do that.
Which rights?
Okay. This one individual has not done that.
So he has not done what you just said he did.
However, the propaganda against gay people has gone against the entire country, such as hating gay people. Like,
what has he done to hate gay people?
Just had a gay wedding at Mar-a-Lago, literally.
You just had a gay wedding at his house.
He just had a hosted.
If he
So this is what happens to the mind of people when they're exposed to this constant dialectic. Nothing's ever stable. Reflexive alchemy is a relatively modern concept, and it combines elements of reflexive sociology and metaphorical alchemy. It's not actual alchemy, but it works the same way. I remember. It just reminded me of something. I did a show with Days of Noah back in real early on. This was in the spring of 2020. And this was after George Floyd, and this was when they were burning the cities. And we were talking about this, and we were using that term, that this looked like a kind of alchemy, that they were pushing the. At that time I didn't have these concepts down, but so it makes sense, now that we have this language to put with it. Reflexive alchemy. And so we're talking about a metaphorical kind of alchemy, but it works in the real world. It describes how perceptions and realities are shaped and transformed through deliberate actions and narratives. And so you get people who like this young man, I think, can't think. He's just been trained, inundated with the constant dialectic of this one's evil and this one's good, and then it changes. He's lost track of reality. But this term reflexive alchemy is used to explain the process of social engineering, including propaganda, marketing, political campaigning, and cultural shifts. The term overall refers to the process of transforming reality.
Yeah, I mean, how are we all supposed to believe and buy into this idea that, with as many blunders as Joe Biden has done over the last several years, where he comes across like he's completely incapacitated, we're suddenly supposed to believe that the left has woken up to the fact of that? Like, that's just shocking.
Yeah, that's part of.
And that's one of those things. It's like the gaslighting. What you see and what you hear is not what you see and you hear. That's what they've done, and they've successfully done that to a very large extent. Which is, this is how this works. It's like you're seeing this guy behave this certain way. Whether maybe he's putting on a performance to put on this vibe, or maybe he is actually totally, going senile. But neither here nor there. But to sit there and say, "Oh, wait a minute, hang on, we've got to stop everything and we've got to change, who's going to be running." So that's just outrageous. That in and of itself is, in my opinion, grounds for being illegal, because the whole time you've been pushing that forward, that narrative of the president of America can't function.
Yeah, Trump and Biden work perfectly as thesis and antithesis, and then that will switch back and forth. In this case, if we want to understand this, reflexive refers to the process where actions and perceptions are interdependent. In other words, an actor's actions influence the perceptions, which in turn influence subsequent actions. And the alchemy part of it, you have to understand that traditional alchemy was a medieval Renaissance practice closely tied to Hermeticism as well. The idea was generally transforming base metals into noble metals like gold. That's the exoteric description of alchemy. And of course that was a part of it. There's a lot of chemistry that comes from that. But the esoteric element of the inner truth of alchemy was the base metal is you. You're trying to purify yourself. You're trying to save yourself. You're trying to... The idea is ultimately apotheosis. You're going to ascend, right? This is the New Age idea of ascension.
Well, it's like Kamala Harris when she's going, what can be unburdened by what has been? Yeah. What can be unburdened by what has been? And it's just this, tagline that she's got going, which is like a little bit of a chant, witches and warlocks.
Yeah. And so, what Kamala is talking about, and where alchemy was really exoterically, was about these base metals or individual
transcendence.
Yeah, individual transformation and ultimately transcendence. What she's probably talking about is more like what Summer said, a societal transformation.
Right.
So the metaphorical use of alchemy here in contemporary discourse often denotes a profound transformation or the manipulation of elements to achieve a desired outcome, same thing. So reflexive alchemy as a concept merges these ideas, suggesting this process where social engineers, like alchemists, like hermeticists, transform the perceptions of the masses, of society, and in turn they ultimately will transform reality through this reflexive manipulation of narratives and actions.
Yeah, can I just say that I wanted to add that Herbert Marcuse, which is one of their absolute champions, people that have been in the school system in recent years have definitely been exposed to this post-colonialism and all of this, all that we're seeing now with the young people. They've been influenced in large part by people like Herbert Marcuse. And one of his books was called Eros and Civilization. And within that, it's talking about the second Garden of Eden to take humanity away from the demon demigod, as they say. Mm-hmm. So they, it's the inverse reality. They're saying that the savior would be the Lucifer character as the hero. Right. And they want to have this second Garden of Eden. So it's a very spiritual movement. It's spiritual at its core, and it's antichrist.
Yeah, exactly. So let's give some examples. Let's lay it out there so you can understand it. What we're thinking about here is they want to influence and transform societal norms. They want to influence and transform behaviors and beliefs. So you identify a desired outcome. What do you want to happen? Then you create the narrative, or you craft the narrative, and then you disseminate the narrative. This is the chance. And then you create the reflexive feedback loop. And then the perceptions and behaviors are influenced. So let's give a couple examples here. Social engineers will identify a desired change or outcome they want to achieve. It could be altering public opinion, could be changing the behaviors or shaping cultural norms. An example would be a political campaign who aims to increase public support for the candidate. Let's just keep it, we'll keep it kind of basic. So they create the narrative, develop a set of messages that align with this desired outcome. They start implanting this into the society. They frame things a certain way that resonates with the target audience. And so this campaign might promote the candidate as a champion of economic reform, as a champion of gay rights or whatever. So then they disseminate this narrative through various channels like media, social networks, and today there are more avenues available than ever. But the goal is to reach as many people as possible. You got to get critical mass on this thing so that the narrative can become embedded in the public consciousness. So social media plays an important role in this. This is why there are so many people. This is why this person here that we heard earlier has no idea why he's so angry about Donald Trump. He just knows he is. And that's, we talked, this is how the transgender movement has worked. It's been this reflexive alchemy process as well, where young people, very young children who are exposed to social media and the internet, dissociate, right? They're confronted with images and ideas that are way too mature, shocking for their sensibilities at that age, and so they start sort of disassociating. Or on the other hand, they'll find figures, influencers that they love, that they want to be like, that they idolize, and that they do what they can to mimic this. And so they become fractured in their I don't want to say psyches, but I'm not trying to speak psychology. You can go to Days of Noah channel if you want to get a better explanation of how all that works down at the psychological level. But in general, the goal is to reach as many people as possible. You want to fracture the minds of young people, right? Because when they're fractured, when they're traumatized, when you can traumatize people, you have access to them. And then you can embed these new ideas. This would be a more severe, a more extreme version of reflexive alchemy. So, for example, this campaign might use all of these platforms that are available, TV commercials, public endorsements. You might use marches, mass movements like this. But then you got to create these feedback loops. So the social engineers will monitor how the narrative that they've put out, how are people receiving it? And then you start responding to that, adjusting the message based on the feedback. When people respond positively, or positive reception reinforces the narrative, negative feedback would be addressed by modifying the message. For example, if a segment of the population is skeptical about the candidate's platform, well, then the campaign will release detailed plans and testimonials to tell them what they want to hear. And then, obviously, this is influencing the perceptions and behaviors. So as the narrative begins to gain traction, it begins to influence public perceptions and behaviors. People start to view this candidate favorably. Maybe they want people to view them negatively, but whatever the desired outcome is, it starts taking hold. Polls will show an increase in support. And so the idea would be to achieve this desired social transformation. The ultimate goal is achieved when the transformed perceptions and behaviors lead to the desired social outcome, such as winning the election or shifting public opinion. In this case, fundamentally changing American culture. Let's see, more examples. Let's see. Okay, so probably, Summer, one of the best examples that we could offer is, if you can find that, you might be able to find Barack Obama's Yes We Can campaign logo or some graphic with that Yes We Can.
Sure.
But, this Barack Obama's Yes We Can campaign in 2008, it used messaging that was hopeful, inclusive. It resonated with a lot of people. It was a powerful narrative of change and progress. Right? You remember, if you were around back then, you remember the idea was change. Change. Yes, we can. Yes, we can what? Change. Change what? Well, progress. Where are we going? Change. Right? But you see, there's no substance there. But the idea is now you've got people on board because they're buying into your idea of change or progress. Governments and organizations use this process just the same. Summer and I were talking about this, right? You said this is common to marketing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is the same exact strategy if you want to do a commercial campaign.
This is an example of how it could be used nefariously in marketing. Let's just say, for example, that Neil Postman uses this example. You know, the little buttons that roll your window up and down on your car. What problem does that really solve? Like, you know, doing this motion? Like, is that hard? Is that difficult? Was that a problem that needed to be solved? Probably not. But there was a company who had this product and, you know, in the luxury sales, right? But it's not really solving a problem. So you convince people that they need this new feature and they want this new feature. And you tell them, well, look at this element of society. These people who you want to be like, these wealthy people, the Joneses, you got to keep up with the Joneses. Their car has these new power windows, power light. They have cruise control because keeping your foot on the pedal is too difficult to do. I like cruise control. But anyway, it's not really solving a problem. But people believe they need it, believe it's something that they need. Crafting and compelling stories and adjusting them based on the public's reception to maintain control over the narrative. Films, posters, broadcasts, anything used to shape public opinion and morale. Activists, social movements, obviously, this is what we're talking about here tonight. They bring attention to their causes. They influence public opinion. They influence policy, right? The Respect for Marriage Act, Disrespect for Marriage Act, which, again, that's another example of this alchemical process where it's called the Disrespect for Marriage Act. I'm sorry, it's called the Respect for Marriage Act, but what it actually did was disrespect marriage at the fundamental level. Leveraging media, the public, amplifying the message and the impact. Civil rights movement in the United States used powerful imagery, narratives of injustice and hope, adjusting their strategies as needed based on public and governmental responses. And the purpose was to drive societal change. Also, the purpose was to get the executive branch of the government more power than they actually deserved constitutionally. A very good example of this reflexive alchemy, the process of it, is the babies in the incubators before the first Iraq War. And also the idea that anyone who didn't support the war, or like Thomas Massey, who did not vote for the COVID, what were they called when you got the checks? I can't remember what those are called now.
Stimulus checks.
Yeah, the stimulus checks. He didn't vote for that because he saw that it was not good for the people, that it was a grab at. It was what they did ultimately is they used those bills to put in all kinds of policies and initiatives that were bad. But what ultimately Massey saw through this. He saw that this was what was happening. Donald Trump himself called up Thomas Massey and berated him for not voting for it, because you're a bad person if you don't support this particular bill, because we're helping the people, we're saving the people, we're giving them money because they have to stay home because they're locked down. And let's see here, I've got more examples I can give you. The Arab Spring, 2010 to 2012. The desired outcome was the overthrow of an authoritarian regime. I'm going to be speaking to you on general terms, right? We might have a disagreement about what actually happened there, but we're trying, this is an academic process, right? We're trying to learn something here. But the Arab Spring, let's say the desired outcome was to overthrow an authoritarian regime. So we have to craft a narrative. Activists used social media. They were able to spread the message widely, sharing stories of oppression, calls for democracy. So they disseminate this narrative through social media platforms. Twitter, Facebook specifically were used. Not only that, these messages went way farther than, for example, in Egypt. It went all over the world. And so they got support from all over the world. And then they created the reflexive feedback loop. The activists adapted their strategies based on the responses they were hearing, based on what how the government was responding, based on the international attention. Then they would change their message and alter their message to fit that. Then the narratives of freedom and justice motivated these mass participation in protest. The people believed that this was something they should be involved with because the message was strong enough. Whether it was true or not, the message was strong enough to get these people involved. Several regimes were challenged during the Arab Spring. Several regimes were overthrown. And it did lead to significant political changes. But when you go back and you look at these areas now, how much better off are the people? What about climate change, environmental activism? They said the desired outcome is to increase public awareness and policy changes regarding climate change. So we know one of the ways they do that is through fear. So they create a narrative of fear. Activists and scientists put out data. They put out a narrative that tells people that the world's going to end. The seas are going to boil. And then they respond to that. When people respond in the way they want to, they increase it. If people don't believe it, they press harder or they shift. Remember, a good example of reflexive alchemy is how it used to be called global warming. And then people are like, this is not really happening. In fact, you just said there was an ice age happening. And so they changed the message. No, it's not really global warming. It's just climate change. Reflexive alchemy is a process of deliberate manipulation of ideas and attitudes through narratives that are designed to transform social realities. Doesn't matter whether they're true, whether they're real, whether they're based in reality or not. By manipulating perceptions, attitudes, emotions, and the actions of people, of groups, social engineers can achieve very significant shifts in public opinion in a whole culture. Whether it's in politics, marketing, or propaganda, the principles of reflexive alchemy are a powerful tool. You can even say this is an evil tool that's used to create outcomes that are not in the best interest of the people. Neil Postman, an influential American critic, educator, media theorist, author of Amusing Ourselves to Death and Technopoly also. He addressed the transformation of society through media, specifically television, and how it shapes and degrades public discourse in his 1985 book, Amusing Ourselves to Death, subtitled The Public Discourse in the Age of Show Business. His central thesis is that the medium through which we receive information significantly influences how we understand and interact with the world. So this suggests that a society's dominant form of media is what shapes the way we behave. It shapes the discourse. It shapes the public square in ways that are often incompatible with rational and critical thinking. In Chapter 9 of Amusing Ourselves to Death, Postman writes, quote, "The principal instrument of show business is artifice," unquote. And so the same applies to network news. The same applies to social media. The same applies to YouTube. It applies to your Facebook and your Twitter feed. All are entertainment. And all of them are potent public relations mechanisms. Everybody's doing public relations. We're doing public relations when we engage with social media or YouTube. The difference is, what is that message? Is that message grounded in any kind of eternal truth? National or global narratives are being shaped by appeals to emotion, appeals to authority, bandwagon fallacy, etc., etc. And when censorship is added to the cocktail, it becomes even more sinister than simply dumbing down the populace. With censorship in the recipe, which restricts, bans, or obfuscates unwelcome opinions, we now have a robust weapon for control, a robust weapon for social engineering. News media focuses on the ephemeral threat, for example, of UFOs or UAP, aliens, or Christian nationalism, right? This is reflexive alchemy. James Lindsay's been very good at putting this point out there, that Christian nationalism is reflexive alchemy. It's a psychological operation. There's no point to call it Christian nationalism. Christians already believe in nationalism. We already believe in being loyal to our home, to our hometown, to our home nation. While real crises are threatening real people in the real world, this is what our government, this is what our media is focused on. Why are aliens visiting us more now than in the past 100 years? Does the rise in UFOs or UAP as a popular Google search term, and the fact that we're having congressional hearings about alien crash retrieval programs, does that have anything to do with the fact that education has been severely degraded in America? Is it a coincidence that the recent rise of anti-America movements inside America, attacks on nationalism, have coincided with the normalization of online learning and a rise in engagement with social media? In our lust for more stuff, for more fun, for constant entertainment, feed me more visuals, more information. And with the explosion of self-interest or individualism as the highest good, Americans have abandoned the sure foundation of a coherent philosophy of life or worldview. In the whole, where the biblical Christian worldview once lived, now lives an anti-Christian, anti-human, neo-pagan epistemology that attempts to validate all beliefs as equal, except for the most inconvenient one, and that would be biblical Christianity, with the one true living Creator God as sovereign. So this is the normalization of evil. You see this person here who was not able to accept the reality that was presented in front of him. That is a good example also of just extreme cognitive dissonance. It's the normalization of confusion and evil, the normalization of child abuse, the normalization of the denial of gender dimorphism, exalting the self, the cross-dressing, men living as women, erasing the beauty of natural and biblical womanhood and manhood, surgical mutilation of children's bodies, openly, proudly exalting abortion as a sacrament of self-directed religion, calling it a reproductive right. The alchemical process was to inject into the narrative, it's not abortion. The new narrative is, it's reproductive rights. And then you hear it repeated back. Then it's successful. All the while, these people claim to be victims. The ones calling for intifada, we're victims. We're the oppressed. While they stand in the freest nation that ever existed. That is a very effective alchemical process. That is probably the most effective mind control that's ever been achieved in the world. The point is to escalate the rhetoric so that people keep watching, period. That's the point of television, of social media. That's the point of YouTube. The whole point of YouTube is to keep you watching, to keep you watching. What's being said is usually based on a truth somewhere, but first and foremost, it must be entertaining. Truth is way down here somewhere. What that causes is it makes it possible for messages that are far beyond reality to be absorbed by the masses. It makes it possible for the masses to accept and start living in a hyper reality that can always be changed. How easy is it when people have lost their connection to the real world and they completely live engaged with screens? It's so easy to change their perspective. It's so easy to alter reality when the reality isn't real. It's more real than real, in fact. It's better than reality. Never forget this. Nobody is forced to watch the propaganda. Nobody is forced to engage with Facebook or Twitter or X or YouTube or television. The government doesn't require you to watch it, but they sure do use it to control you. We willingly engage in our own indoctrination. We willingly engage in the propaganda of our own will. This is not Orwellian. Again, we've said it before. This is a Huxleyan world where we all have, to varying degrees, learned to love our servitude. But the news is not there to inform you. It's there to make you feel something and to keep you watching. As Neil Postman says, we shouldn't expect anything better from our entertainment because TV is at its best when it's vapid and shallow and doesn't engage on anything deep. This is why men are walking around naked on the street and people are cheering them for it. This is why. They've brought this hyper reality where they've been trained and indoctrinated out into the real world. They brought their idealistic view of reality, and they've actually pulled it out into the street, into the real world. The finer points of philosophy or theology don't matter anymore. It's all about who can shout the loudest, who can be the most shocking. Mostly what happens is social media and YouTube and all of this constant barrage destroys your ability to think. That means you have to engage it. If you engage it, you have to engage it with a very definitive intention. Very carefully. All you have to do is research what the highest rated TV shows are right now. Look at what the highest viewed YouTube channels are right now. Mr. Beast? PewDiePie? You shouldn't be surprised that you see a naked man walking around the street. In Roger Scruton's article I had up here a minute ago, The Art of Taking Offense, it says there are now experts in the art of taking offense. Indeed, whole academic subjects, such as gender studies, devoted to it. You may not know in advance what offense consists in, politely opening a door, or for a member of the opposite sex. Is that offensive? It is today. Thinking of a woman as the opposite sex today is offensive. Thinking in terms of sex at all rather than gender. Using the wrong pronoun. Who knows? We've encountered a new kind of predatory censorship, a desire to take offense that patrols the world for opportunities without knowing in advance what will best supply that venom. As with the Puritans of the 17th century, the need to humiliate and punish precedes any concrete sense of why we should do it. I don't know that I completely agree with Scruton on that last sentence, although that did occur. I wouldn't charge all Puritans with that. That's a characteristic of humanity in general, not just the Puritans. Key phrases: predatory censorship, a desire to take offense, the need to humiliate and punish. Right? That's what we see in politics, so-called, today. It's not just we got to defeat our opponent at the polls. We have to humiliate our opponent. We have to punish them, put them in prison. So we should reflect on what all these ideas have done to us. Television, social media, and YouTube are mediums that transform serious public discourse into entertainment. And that's all it can ever be. That debate is entertainment. People are making important decisions based on it, that's for sure, but you shouldn't. You shouldn't be making up your mind on who you're going to vote for because of that. A lecture can be watched or listened to on YouTube or on a podcast, but still, you cannot absorb and receive the full measure of knowledge and training apart from the process of being held directly accountable for retaining that knowledge. For example, demonstrating that you've mastered the material through interaction with instructors and fellow learners. It works the same way with church. You cannot receive what God has designed the church to provide: worship, fellowship, teaching, accountability, discipline, and the safety of Christ's family. You can't get that from your screen. Entertainment, especially anything that poses as news, is inherently biased towards visual stimulation, quick cuts, rapid pacing. It all prioritizes keeping viewers engaged, which is way more important than presenting anything of depth, complexity, or truthfulness. That's why our presidential debates have turned into circuses. America's shift from reading and in-person intentional learning to fast-moving visual entertainment or listening to podcasts has caused us to lose our ability to stay focused. We're short attention span nation now. Makes it difficult for Americans to engage in any sustained reasoning or follow complex arguments. Again, here's the example. This is the result. Complex issues are oversimplified into digestible segments. They're stripped of nuance and depth, and the result is a poorly informed public who can't think, incapable of engaging on substantive discussions, unable to discern what's real and important. And so when appeals to emotion are valued over logical arguments, you get naked men walking around flopping in the streets. Inevitably, the severity of important events is missed, underestimated, or greatly blown out of proportion. When entertainment, information, learning, and leisure are all received in one place, the line between entertainment and real life, fantasy and reality is blurred. And this distorted view of reality has made us all more susceptible to manipulation. Yes, even you and me. We see it happening right now as certain members of society are more passive and compliant. Some are depressed and despondent. We have the CDC has a category of deaths called despair deaths now. That's people who die of drug overdoses, self-harm. Despair deaths. Some become agitated, reactive, and are activated to violence. Today we have more rebels without a cause than ever before. So the question for you today is, what is your cause? What is your purpose? Think about that. What is your cause and what is your purpose? Summer, that's all I think we've got. Is there anything, you have anything for us before we find our way out of here?
Just that in seeing all of these strong reactions, for example, out in these parades and up in New York protesting Biden, they want to instill some sort of large reaction from all of us because that's how it moves their plans forward. So just stay steady, stay non-reactive, stay stoic. Don't participate in what because they want to draw these intense reactions out of you. So try to remember that. Try not to get lost in it. Just know that they're doing that, and try to remind people that this is going on to sort of wake them up out of the trance. And I understand. I mean, some of this stuff is really, really, really tough to look at, but we can do it. And we do, the good news is that we do have access to a lot of information now. And because of that, we can understand the strategy that they're using and just see it for what it is. And we praise God for that.
Excellent. Thank you. That's a good point. It reminds me, too, of, let's see. Let's go here. Proverbs 9. Wisdom has built her house. She's hewn it with her 7 pillars. She's slaughtered her beasts. She's mixed her wine. She's also set her table. Let's go down here to 7 and 8. Whoever corrects a scoffer gets himself abuse. Think about this when you're tempted to do what Summer just said. When you're tempted to react and call somebody out because of their obviously ridiculous position, right? Whoever corrects a scoffer gets himself abuse, and he who reproves a wicked man incurs injury. Do not reprove a scoffer, or he will hate you. Reprove a wise man, and he will love you. Give instruction to a wise man, and he will be still wiser. Teach a righteous man, and he will increase in learning. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the holy is insight. For by me your days will be multiplied. How about that for a promise? Are we claiming that promise today? The Lord says, for by me your days will be multiplied. You want a long and healthy life? There you go. For by me your days will be multiplied, and years will be added to your life. If you're wise for yourself. If you scoff, you alone will bear it. Is there an objective reality? In what do you ground your experiences and desires? Your beliefs about reality? In the wisdom literature, unbelievers are qualified 4 ways. There's 4 words that mean the same thing that are used over and over. Scoffers, mockers, scorners, and fools. Scoffers, mockers, scorners, and fools are not looking for wisdom. They're not seeking wisdom. Only those who desire wisdom deserve an answer. You don't have to respond to the woke mob. You don't have to go out and engage them in the public, at a gay pride parade or something like that. That's when it's a scoffer, a mocker, a scorner, or a fool, someone who's not seeking wisdom. They don't deserve an answer. Sometimes people like to bark back at that and say you're not being very loving. But we have to look at what Jesus said. If you go to Luke 20. I hadn't planned to do this, Summer, so I figured since it's already a long show, I'd go ahead and do it. Because it's probably a good, based on what you just said there, it reminded me of this. I think it's a good time to bring this up. How should we actually respond? When should we actually respond to people? Luke 20, verses 1 through 8. One day, Jesus, as he was teaching the people in the temple and preaching the gospel, the chief priests and the scribes with the elders came up and said to him, "Tell us, by what authority do you do these things? Or who it is that gave you this authority?" He answered them, "I will also ask you a question." See, he didn't answer the question. Was the baptism of John from heaven or from man? And they discussed it with one another, saying, if we say from heaven, he will say, why did you not believe him? But if we say from man, all the people will stone us to death, for they are convinced that John was a prophet. So they answered that they did not know where it came from. And Jesus said to them, neither will I tell you by what authority I do these things. Scoffers and mockers and scorners and fools use reason, use rationality to justify their emotional actions. But you don't have to answer all of them. Only those who desire wisdom deserve an answer. You can check that out with Luke 23, verses 8 and 10 as well. So Summer said, be stoic. That's good, Summer. I appreciate that. That's a good point. Be stoic. Remain stoic. Be still. Stand firm, as Paul says in Ephesians and other places as well. Luke 23:8. When Herod saw Jesus, he was very glad, for he had long desired to see him. Now, this is the president coming to you to ask you a question. This is Herod. This is the king coming to ask Jesus. He was glad because he had questions to ask, because he had heard about him, and he was hoping to see some sign done by him, right? Herod wanted to see a miracle. He wanted questions answered, and he wanted to see a miracle. So Herod questioned Jesus at some length. Jesus gave no answer. The chief priests and the scribes stood by, vehemently accusing him. And Herod with his soldiers treated him with contempt and mocked him. The point here, though, is that Jesus did not respond, because Herod wasn't seeking wisdom. He wanted to see a miracle. He wanted to grill Jesus. He wanted to find out what all was going on. He wasn't seeking wisdom. And so Jesus didn't respond to him. So there's your example. The Lord Jesus Christ, he didn't give an answer to everyone who asked, only those who were seeking wisdom. All right, I think that's good enough for tonight. Thank you for enduring this with me tonight.
It was good.
Appreciate it.
It was really good. Thank you.
And thank you, folks, for staying with us on a long one tonight, a longer show than we've been doing lately. I know the goal is to make them shorter. About an hour would be better, but hey, what can I say? We'll try to get better at that. But I just enjoy being here with Summer and doing these shows, and I enjoy talking to you folks. This is a very important time in America, and
sure is.
Here we are with this platform and the ability to share the truth with you and to help in some way
make sense of the craziness.
Make sense of it all, to teach and guide, to exalt Jesus, to make his name known in the world. And that's our prayer, that we would do that. And we pray that you will have gained more knowledge of the Savior through your interactions with us, so that it wouldn't be just vapid YouTube content, that you would actually get some substance from it. God bless you, my friends. We'll see you again here.
God bless you.
Next time.
Thank you, guys. Good night.
Well, that's a rather interesting position coming from a man on a crusade against the evils of technology.
I'm not against technology, Doctor. I'm against the men who deify it at the expense of human truth.
Armor of Truth. Live.
In the age of technocracy, scientism, and pop atheism,
faith is resistance.
Nietzsche, of course, announced the death of God and called for the birth of the Übermensch, the Superman, who would take humanity to new heights and to create a new world order.
Find us at the Armor of Truth YouTube channel.
armoroftruth.net.